my mind, I was able to think and process. And if I let him get back up, he's going to get back up. I was like, let me finish this right now. And I caught him with that left hook, and then I caught him again with that right hook just to make sure the job was done, because I was calculating his hands wasn't touching the ground and his knees weren't touching the ground, but I know he was still going down. To make sure he wasn't getting back up, I had to let those last two off, man.
Combat Sports Report. Only on SportsGrid.
He's just only 2,300 points behind. So even if he does win at Memphis, he's still going to be behind Scottie Scheffler in the points by 300. So why? I mean, I want Scottie Scheffler to show up in Memphis, but does he need to? If Rory's not showing up and the third place guy, even if he wins, isn't going to pass him?
The Smiley Show. Only on SportsGrid.
What do you make of the season that Barkley had last year as he piled on the yards to get over 2,000, and what can that look like this year?
His year could have been much better with different circumstances here. So he was great. I assume he'll be great again. You want to take Jahmyr Gibbs? I don't have an issue with it, but, Barkley, yeah, you're going to lose the tush push.
Fantasy Sports Today. Only on SportsGrid.
Big Fish is the best player in the WNBA. She is running away with the MVP award. Why is that? Caitlin Clark, injured. Asia Wilson, not playing at Asia Wilson level, but it's more about the fact about what's around her has been an issue. So to me, Fish is almost like the MVP because everyone else has gone down in some way, shape, or form.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
And we are live. It is a Friday morning on the Early Line, Sirius XM Channel 159. It's Donnie Wrights out. It's Joe Ranieri. Over the next 2 hours, we got you covered on all the hottest topics across the sports landscape, which includes an NFL football game on your TV yesterday. Was it entertaining? Did you win money? Did you enjoy yourself? Did you see the Chargers winning 34-7? We'll get to that and much, much more, but an entertaining trade deadline yesterday in Major League Baseball. We now have the haves and the have-nots, and the most important thing, Joe, today is Friday morning, August the 1st. Away we go. New month, new money, right here on the SportsGrid Network. I'm excited for this show, Joe. I know you have to be as well.
Absolutely. Officially, the dog days of summer are behind us, Donnie. Football is back. College football is around the corner. And now there is a whole lot of Major League Baseball teams I'm looking to fade here over the stretch now that the trade deadline has come and gone.
Absolutely. Trying to get after it. Let's get busy. Let's start right now in the 7-7 because why? The Chargers put one on the Lions yesterday. What were the Lions doing? 5 turnovers in that football game, 34-7 final, 21-7 at the break. The Chargers never look better. Harbaugh banging on those shoulder pads there of Trey Lance. He went 13 of 20 for 120 yards and 2 touchdowns in the first half. Easy victory for those Chargers.
Yeah, well, it's simple. The Lions weren't playing football. I'm not sure exactly what the Lions were doing, but can somebody explain to me why Dan Campbell is sending a linebacker out there to return the opening kickoff in which he promptly fumbled? Because, I don't know, he's a linebacker, Dan Campbell. What did you think was going to happen here? So, great showing by the Chargers. I would not want to be in Detroit's practice this week. I'm just going to say that.
It's going to be a tough one there. And also not at practices or having fun at practices. How about the Commanders and Terry McLaurin? He wants a trade. He's upset. He wants $30+ million a year. And Washington's like, hey, you're good. We love you, but maybe just not that good. Always seems like that's the next escalation is that the player wants to get out of town in a trade. That ain't happening. They ain't trading this guy. Come on now. They ain't getting traded.
Well, then you better get the deal done. Otherwise, the phone is going to be ringing, that is for sure. And next thing you know, you're going to find yourself with an opportunity to trade him, and you're going to go, okay, what do we do now? So it's unfortunate it's gotten to this point, Don. It really is. But he must have gotten to camp trying to do the right thing, and his agent is saying we are absolutely nowhere close to getting a deal done. So this is the logical next step.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy how it turns out, too, because that guy's well-liked in the locker room, a really good football player. Your quarterback is on his rookie contract, but you just can't come to an agreement with a player that's basically going to be 30, 31 years old with a new huge deal, and we'll see how that plays out in Washington. Better to get him in camp, better to get him on the field. The sooner the faster, the sooner the better, I should say, for the Washington Commanders. Let's take a look here at the Major League Baseball trade deadline. Hey, man, the band's getting back together. Carlos Correa goes from the Minnesota Twins back to the Houston Astros. Things didn't work out so well for him on the free agent market, back with Houston. And by the way, Minnesota paying a chunk of that salary as well, Joe.
Yeah, but the problem is you're getting back a 31-year-old beat up Carlos Correa, who's never really lived up to his potential anyway. But that's because Isaac Paredes is going to be nowhere to be found. He is. Listen, he lives in the offseason in Houston, so maybe that's enough to light a fire under him and get him to live up to that potential. I love what, Houston, we should not be surprised with Houston making the smart moves at the deadline to try to make a run at this.
By the way, a lot of teams made a lot of action moves yesterday, and maybe none bigger than the Padres, fortifying that bullpen, also picking up O'Hearn and Ramon Laureano from the Orioles. The Padres looking to step it up, and by the way, their odds market shrinking now in that World Series price.
If somebody had only mentioned Mason Miller going to the Padres yesterday. Oh, yeah, that's right. We did right here on this show. And nobody, and I mean nobody, remember this, no GM in Major League Baseball is more crazy than AJ Preller, willing to do whatever it takes and spend whatever money and finagle whatever he's got to do to try and put together a team at the deadline that he thinks can actually compete. And let's face it, he's putting his team together to make a run at the Dodgers and nobody else at this point.
Absolutely. Love to see it, though. Get after the Dodgers, man. Make those moves. And by the way, if you get into late games, 3-2, 3-1, 3-3 ties, you look at that bullpen for the Padres. They can go toe-to-toe with anybody in Major League Baseball now. Another team that's looking to make the playoffs and at least maybe get the AL East crown, that's the Yankees. They made major moves in their bullpen yesterday. Bednar, Doval, and they say still Williams is going to be the closer. Improving your bullpens, that's usually rule number one for a team looking to make a run to the World Series.
Yeah, well, the Yankees, they did that, did they not? I mean, they completely revamped their back end here, and that is really good news here because all of these guys, and basically, bye-bye, Devin Williams. He's going to be a free agent at the end of the year anyway. He was a rental in many aspects, and you can't have over a 5 ERA, Donnie, and expect to be a closer in the Bronx and get away with it. So I love what Cashman did because all of those guys, by the way, under team control for more than 1 year.
Always key that they do that here because you never want to make a trade for a rental, can't re-sign the guy, or the guy understands you made a trade, gave up prospects. You're going to probably have to pay me even more than what a hometown discount typically would be. Major League Baseball yesterday, 3 games on the docket. We saw that Yankees game earlier. We just talked about the Yankees and some of the moves they made. But how about the Atlanta Braves winning 12-11 yesterday in extra innings? And Joe Ranieri, you had that first 5 winner. Thank goodness you had that because craziness happened in 16 total runs in the 8th inning. 8 by the Atlanta Braves, countered by 8 for the Cincinnati Reds. 23 total runs. A day before, the Atlanta Braves couldn't even get a base hit or a run scored in Kansas City in extra innings. They played 12 yesterday in a victory over the Reds.
Absolutely wild. But that, again, is why we look at first 5s when you have starting pitching advantages because bullpens...
Same.
Yeah, no thanks. Imagine scoring 8 runs being Atlanta and being like, all right, finally, we're off and then giving up 8 in the bottom of the inning, Donnie, and being like, okay, maybe we don't have this. But they get it done eventually in 10 innings. Wild game there yesterday at the Great American Ballpark.
Yeah, just taking a look at things in Major League Baseball now as we get past the trade deadline. Things will start to settle down. We'll get to that game a little bit later on in the show that played out last night with 2 impressive rosters in the Mariners with a 6-0 victory. But Major League Baseball now, buyers, they're in now. The sellers, we'll see if they're waving the white flag. You thought the Atlanta Braves might not have a lot of fight in them yesterday. As we said, they did. They scored 12 yesterday in a victory over the Reds. Let's keep it moving. The NBA all season usually is entertaining. The New York Knicks, that payroll, what was as high as the Dodgers at this point? Maybe higher. 4 years, $150 million extension for Mikal Bridges.
Yeah, who was absolutely nowhere to be found when it mattered the most in the postseason. But yeah, hey, sign him to $1,200 million. Another guy that'll disappear when it matters there in the Eastern Conference semis and on. I don't. I guess what else are you going to do? Everyone else is making that money. I'm very confused with the Mikal Bridges love with the Knicks. I really am.
Hey, it is. They're set here. They got their coach. They're ready to go. Maybe it is Mike Brown. Maybe it's not to lead them to a championship, but that's what's going on there up in Madison Square Garden. Quick question here for you, Joe, too, because we take a look at that NFL game last night. Did you enjoy yourself watching that game? Because we asked the question once again on Fade the Public at the end of the show on did you actually go back and were you saying to yourself, oh, I'm just going to hate on this game? I watched at least the first quarter of that game. Just good to see football back and Trey Lance looking legit out there.
Just loved it. The game opened up with a turnover, a big hit, and Trey Lance. They went for it on fourth down and end up, who knew Will Dissly was actually still in the NFL? I mean, fantastic stuff, Donnie, last night. But yes, I did watch, and I watched a pretty impressive Chargers effort there last night. Not so much on Detroit's effort.
Other news and notes out there, Stanford to hire ex-Nike CEO as their athletic director. And how about Tiger's son? One step closer to a junior Ryder Cup spot here. By the way, the Ryder Cup coming up at the end of September. Beth Page, home team, United States here. We'll see if they can pick up the victory in the Ryder Cup. Always a lot of fun to watch you play up. We have an action-packed show set up and ready to go on a Friday, right here on the early line. Sirius XM Channel 159. It's Joe and Donnie on a Friday morning. We'll be right back after this short break.
We all know a night out at the club in Vegas can get a little bit pricey, but I've got a tip that can save you a cover fee at some of the hottest nightclubs. All you have to do is sign up online for free with a credible guest list service. Then, just show up before 10:30 and check right in. See you in Las Vegas. Let's get lucky.
They lay over and die at the hands of the Minnesota Lynx, who beat them 109-78. The defense is a mess. The offense is a mess. The Vegas Aces, who I was so sold on, JY, bouncing back and being one of the absolute best teams in this league, are average at best.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
Over a full season, is he going to be Mike Piazza? No, of course not. But I think he's going to be a guy who can help your team here. My only problem really with Alvarez is this, as Craig and I have talked about so many times, catcher is deep. If you're in a two-catcher league, by the way, please, for the love of God, I never understood why anybody plays in two-catcher leagues. But in a one-catcher league, who's the catcher you're dropping?
Fantasy Sports Today. Only on SportsGrid.
Major League Baseball trade deadline action yesterday. Not a lot of action on the field for game numbers volume, right? 3 total games yesterday, but you did have a lot of action in that Reds and Atlanta Braves game that we did talk about. But heading into the night, how about this one? Carlos Correa reuniting with the Houston Astros after leaving Minnesota. Minnesota going to pick up a lot of that salary. And looking at Correa going back to the Astros, pretty good career here, right? You take a look at a 3-time All-Star, 2017 World Series champion with Houston from 2015 to 2021. He returns back. They need some extra pop in the lineup, and maybe he can stay healthy and give them that extra pop here. In 2025, you see the statistics, 7 home runs and 31 RBIs. Got to be happy to leave the Twin Cities, which is a straight-up sale right now. You want a fire sale? It happened in Minnesota. The Houston Astros, known for making deep runs in the playoffs, they fortify that lineup with Carlos Correa yesterday.
Yeah, well, I think it also signals that with Houston, just making the playoffs is not a big win here. They are making moves in order to be able to get a good run at this. And what they needed and what they know, by the way, they know they lost Paredes, right? So they knew they needed to address this. And Carlos Correa is still living in the offseason in Houston, very familiar with this team, the area. He's got a lot of friends and family there. It's a win-win situation for both, because you mentioned Correa's leaving a Minnesota organization that who was so over the top in salaries and now really doesn't have any salaries anymore. They binge and purge there. But don't forget, Houston's got all these starting pitchers and relievers coming back here over the next couple of weeks. So they are in prime position to be able to make another run at it, if you can believe it.
He also adding Jesus Sanchez yesterday from the Miami Marlins to sort of, again, put a little bit more pop in that lineup. We always know if that starting pitching is healthy there, that bullpen should be able to come around. Jose Altuve, always a mainstay, gets his boy back in Carlos Correa, and we'll see if they can make a run. Other acquisitions yesterday, because the deadline was fantastic all day long. The question marks were, are the rich going to get richer? And typically that's what happens here. We've known the Padres to make moves in the past, but the Padres yesterday were absolutely on fire. Mason Miller, J.P. Sears, Nestor Cortez, Ryan O'Hearn, Ramon Laureano, Freddie Fermin. It almost looks like they flipped over half of their roster, which now I look at and say, boy, I like the starting pitching. I absolutely love that bullpen. And if that 1 through 9 can just stay healthy and hit the way we know they can hit, Joe, that team can certainly do some damage.
Yeah, and you got to love it because, again, Mason Miller is under contract for a couple of more years here. Suarez, their current closer, is not. He's going to be a free agent at the end. But you add some pop there, like you said, and Ryan O'Hearn. Laureano has been absolutely crushing it. You get some catching depth, too, now. And, oh, by the way, you kept Dylan Cease, even though we kept managing to hear that that was going to be a trade piece. You can get Nestor Cortez from Milwaukee to eat up some innings. Once again, the Padres did exactly what they needed to do, and in order to chase down the Dodgers, which is the ultimate goal for them.
I'll tell you what's also incredible, too, is you try to line things up, and it's like the playoffs. Usually in the past, it was always about, Joe, your starting pitching. And for some degree, it is. If you have frontline starters, they can go 6 to 7 innings in the playoffs. But how many times have we seen, like, quality pitchers leave the game after 2 on and 1 out in a 1-1 game in the third inning, where you just have to piecemeal that bullpen for 5 to 6 innings, and you're able to do it. And even in fashion now is once you get to the World Series and later, like the NLDS, the ALDS, the ALCS, the NLCS, you even see bullpen days in the actual rotation as opposed to a starter in the biggest games here. You fortify that bullpen. You can mix and match and go up against any batters that you like. I really like what the San Diego Padres have done. And also, the New York Yankees, sure, you're always looking for an extra bat in the lineup or starting pitcher, but the Yankees yesterday, Bednar, Doval, Bird, coming into that bullpen here. If Williams can get it together, you can go toe-to-toe with anybody again. I love bullpen arms, and Bednar, the best one of there for the Yankees.
Well, I mean, it's good. You got Jake Bird, you got Bednar. The last one was the Camilo Doval there at the end from the Giants. All of these guys at any point, they miss bats a lot. All of those guys do. And that's something the Yankees certainly need. And this is coming off the heels of adding some depth with the bats. And, of course, I think Ryan McMahon, huge addition, not only offensively, but defensively at third base, a position that's really bothered the Yankees over the years. Now, all of a sudden, you better score early on the Yankees because you may not be scoring late.
No doubt about it. Other notable Major League Baseball trades yesterday, the Rangers picking up Merrill Kelly as a starting pitcher, the Red Sox getting Dustin May from the Los Angeles Dodgers, the Tigers getting Mr. Reliable Charlie Morton, the Rays getting Griffin Jackson here. Again, that sell-off feels like it certainly continues there up in Minnesota. The Mets getting Cedric Mullins in the outfield, and also Willie Castro, the Cubs. So you look at some of those moves, they don't seem like they're tip of the iceberg. Now we're going to go for it, but quality players in there that can certainly, Joe, help you down the stretch.
Yeah, I mean, and listen, the Mets needed started pitching, but like we had said, there isn't an awful lot of starting pitching out there. So they also needed, an improvement in center field. They got that in Mullins, picking up Helsley and Soto and Tyler Rogers in the back end. All good stuff here for both New York teams.
Yeah, and also other trades there. And again, there were a lot of them, a flurry of trades. Obviously, the big names that we know about that went through, the Tigers getting Finnegan and also Paul Sewald. You take a look at the Phillies with Harrison Bader in the outfield, tried to swing a couple moves for some different outfielders. They settled in here. And again, the selling point of the Minnesota Twins. Brewers picked up guys, Rangers, Phil Maton, the Rays get Adrian Hauser, which is interesting. He was pitching really good so far in the season. The Royals get Mike Yastrzemski here, Jesus Sanchez, as we talked about, the Astros picking him up from the Marlins. So a lot of teams chaining a lot of players yesterday, some trying to get under some mysterious salary cap like Minnesota, and other teams saying, we're going to press this in and try to make a wild card race here, Joe.
Yeah, and that's exactly what this trade deadline has become there. Not a lot of teams tipping their hands, a lot of teams waiting until last minute, but a lot of good. There's also some big names that we heard about for weeks leading in that, well, they didn't go anywhere, including Dylan Cease and a pitcher in Miami that we might see this weekend.
Yeah, exactly. Alcantara's still sitting there, but also the Padres were making all these moves. Going, okay, that's fine. They're going to trade Suarez here out of the bullpen. They kept him as well. Dylan Cease was that hot name that you talked about yesterday. He didn't move here, which is good for the Padres. They are basically all in trying to track down the Los Angeles Dodgers. Now, the fun part about this is going to be is, sure, how do these teams play in the short term in the first couple weeks of August, these fun new lineups that we get to take a look at? But let's reset the marketplace and which numbers changed at the sports books here to say, all right, are they really a Major League Baseball contender for a World Series? We'll hit those topics next, right here on the early line on a Friday morning.
If I have to think long and hard about whether or not you're a Hall of Famer, you're not a Hall of Famer. I don't need to argue stats. I don't need to argue whether or not you are great. If Ichiro Suzuki is not a Hall of Famer, we don't need to have a baseball Hall of Fame. Like, just pack it up and shut it down, because that guy was as good of a hitter as we've ever seen. And he was unbelievable from the first time he stepped onto the field for the Mariners until the end.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
It's edge rushers. That's where it is right now. And I think Myles Garrett is in a class of his own. I think TJ Watt's right there. I think Micah Parsons is right there. Certainly, those guys are very, very good. Myles Garrett is in a class of his own. He just absolutely is. When the advanced stats about the double team rate, his quarterback pressure rate, all of that, he just stands a notch. I don't want to say a big gap, but he stands a notch ahead of those guys.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
He'll be your reserve, your extra guy here. Listen, we all need that. I say this all the time about outfielders. Most leagues, I don't know about your league, but we start 5 outfielders. Even if you're in a 10-team league, that's 50 outfielders. Plus you got some guys at utility. Plus you got some guys on reserve. 70 outfielders are gone. All right, so outfielders are extremely valuable here. And Moniak, if he's available, is a nice guy to pick up right now.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
I feel they're all completely justified. The numbers, they're nearly identical. And speaking of identical, I don't know if you saw that one, Craig. That was pretty wild. From winning their first major to winning their 4th major, both Tiger Woods and Scottie Scheffler completed that task in exactly 1,197 days. Both of them, in the exact amount of days, won their 4th major.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Mark the movement, people, on the early line on a Friday morning, because we always take a look at the season, right? Ooh, we have a lot of fun from, February and March and lining up the World Series odds. And once teams take the field in April and early May, and then the All-Star break. But the big one here is the trade deadline, because teams do improve themselves. I always used to talk about the Los Angeles Dodgers, Joe, saying, the team that they're going to have now, not the team they're going to have at the deadline, similar to many teams. Same thing with the Padres. I think the Padres are a better team today. I think the Yankees are a better team today. I think the Philadelphia Phillies are a better team today. Same thing with the New York Mets. So the haves and the have-nots, as we like to talk about. But if you look at some of the odds, particularly with the Dodgers, how about this, though? The Dodgers were a plus 220 price on Monday to win the World Series. The Dodgers today, Joe, they're a plus 240 price, and I want to start there. Because so many times, including myself, we always figure that the Dodgers at the trade deadline will win the day. More money to spend than anybody else, more prospects than anybody, and they feel they have a need to fill. They're going to go out and get the best prospect. Now, granted, if it maybe was the bullpen they didn't really want to fortify because I think they have a pretty good one, understandable. There weren't unbelievable bats out there in the marketplace outside of Eugenio Suarez, and maybe they didn't want to just dip into that prospect pool to get that player. But it's interesting to me where, like, the first time you see it, outside like a losing streak, like the Dodgers lost a price point. Why? Because a team in their division got really good, and that was the Padres, Joe.
Yeah, well, exactly. And the Padres, and again, AJ Pell are one of the most aggressive general managers in all of Major League Baseball. And you got to love that if you're a Padres fan, then there's no question in your mind with this GM that if he thinks he's got a shot, he's going to be pushing chips all in. He's going to do whatever he's got to do to make this team better. It has been more exciting with Padres baseball over the last 3 and 4 years, Donnie, than it has been in a very, very long time. But ultimately, it's going to come down to, because the Dodgers didn't do a whole lot. I mean, they kind of, they had a little bit of depth. They got rid of Dusty May. Okay, great. Is it enough? Is going to be the question. Is it enough for the Padres, who ultimately in the postseason, even with all those high-priced names and players over the last couple of years, still couldn't catch the Dodgers? Will it be enough this year, especially with Ohtani coming back into the rotation? Is going to be interesting.
I'll tell you what, too, because you take a look at Glass now, who looks like he's back. You're going to get Blake Snell back. If Ohtani stretched out into a starter, like, things are really looking good for the Dodgers. So you don't really have to add on too much, because whose roster spot would they be taking? That's why they get rid of May yesterday. It's like, hey, we got some pitchers coming back into the lineup. We can't all just have 7 or 8 man rotations. Some people have to be on the move. But as we take a look at that move on the Dodgers, Joe, at a plus 220 price to plus 240 as of this week, the exact opposite, taking a look at the bottom of this graphic here, it's the Padres. A 32-1 price now sits at 19-1. Yesterday, when those flurry of trades were going down, you see the 27s to 1, the 25s to 1, the 22s to 1, all disappearing yesterday. I really like what the Padres did. Does it translate onto the field? Does that mean automatic victories here? We're not so sure of that, because we don't have a crystal ball. But I agree. If you're looking for the biggest price drop yesterday, and rightfully so, it was the Padres. They fortified that team yesterday, and it looks like they're saying, we're coming for you, Los Angeles.
I'd love to know what Met fans think about how somehow their odds got worse, and yet they had, I thought they did a great job yesterday. I mean, I especially leading up here, I thought they addressed exactly what they needed to address here. I think Cedric Mullins was a great pickup. Helsley, Soto, Rogers, fortifying that bullpen. Your starting pitching is your starting pitching here, but you still got to be able to hit. You still got to play some defense. I think the bullpen's an improvement, and yet the Mets somehow lost ground is interesting to me. But again, you still got to play the games, Donnie. It doesn't matter what teams look like on paper, does it?
No, it doesn't. And you take a look at some of those moves here, because they do go in different directions. Tampa Bay was a 55-1, and now they're 110-1 because they don't care about winning. It looks like they're just selling, and where are we going to move to and how we sell this baseball team. San Francisco is like, hey, we'll get Rafael Devers a couple weeks ago. Let's see if we can make something happen. They made absolutely nothing happen. They go from 75-1 to 150-1. Why? Because we know the Dodgers are good, and the Padres are like, good luck trying to keep up with us now, as we just got a brand new roster here of feels like all-star talent.
Yeah, Tampa was interesting, right? I mean, Caballero ends up, we had it yesterday, right? Had to switch dugouts there, got pulled from the game. And it's like, hey, dude, you're in the other locker room now. You're a New York Yankee. Sorry about that. But they got rid of Taj Bradley, but they pick up Adrian Hauser. Like, what is Tampa doing? You got Griffin Jacks, maybe one of the best closers that nobody talks about. So what are you, Tampa? I'm still confused as to what they're doing here, Donnie.
Getting a closer for a team that doesn't really need to close out games or make a playoff run. Always a smart investment there in Tampa. We'll take a quick look at the World Series odds, then take a look at some of the division leaders next, right here on the early line.
If I have to think long and hard about whether or not you're a Hall of Famer, you're not a Hall of Famer. I don't need to argue stats. I don't need to argue whether or not you are great. If Ichiro Suzuki is not a Hall of Famer, we don't need to have a baseball Hall of Fame. Like, just pack it up and shut it down, because that guy was as good of a hitter as we've ever seen. And he was unbelievable from the first time he stepped onto the field for the Mariners until the end.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
It's edge rushers. That's where it is right now. And I think Myles Garrett is in a class of his own. I think TJ Watt's right there. I think Micah Parsons is right there. Certainly, those guys are very, very good. Myles Garrett is in a class of his own. He just absolutely is. When the advanced stats about the double team rate, his quarterback pressure rate, all of that, he just stands a notch. I don't want to say a big gap, but he stands a notch ahead of those guys.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
He'll be your reserve, your extra guy here. Listen, we all need that. I say this all the time about outfielders. Most leagues, I don't know about your league, but we start 5 outfielders. Even if you're in a 10-team league, that's 50 outfielders. Plus you got some guys at utility. Plus you got some guys on reserve. 70 outfielders are gone. All right, so outfielders are extremely valuable here. And Moniak, if he's available, is a nice guy to pick up right now.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
I feel they're all completely justified. The numbers, they're nearly identical. And speaking of identical, I don't know if you saw that one, Craig. That was pretty wild. From winning their first major to winning their 4th major, both Tiger Woods and Scottie Scheffler completed that task in exactly 1,197 days. Both of them, in the exact amount of days, won their 4th major.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Let's get some visuals, Joe Ranieri, here on the World Series odds to see how they play out. We'll get to the divisions here and the teams that are the haves and the have-nots. How do they apply that pressure in the month of August and September on their way to a playoff run? If we look at the Dodgers, we just talked about them at a plus 240 price, but now in second in the odds market here, tied up here with the New York Yankees, it's the Philadelphia Phillies. So you go Dodgers, Phillies, Yankees, Tigers, and Mets, 10-1 or less. Any interesting looks at these price points? Because if you felt your team was going to make a move yesterday, your odds probably got better here, and away we go.
Listen, I'm just going to say it here because we've talked about it in the past. Of all those teams, there's one team on that list, Donnie, that has already proven they can steamroll the Dodgers when necessary, and that was the Brewers. Yep. And, listen, it's not like they got worse by any stretch, because the Cubs, what did they do? The Cubs needed a few things as well, and it wasn't exactly a huge banner trade deadline for the Cubs where they got so much better. I still think the Brewers are some value here, and maybe even more so now, because they both the bullpen Shelby Miller they got Danny Jansen from the Rays, so they got some backup and depth with the catching spot. I mean, the Brewers at 17-1, they're the only team, by the way, that has proven they can beat the Dodgers in any series.
Yeah, bring on the Dodgers, man. Beat them at home, beat them on the road, handle them in the playoffs, yeoman's work efforts here. Because if we focus on the National League and take a look at the leaders right now in the clubhouse, it's the New York Mets by a half game over the Philadelphia Phillies, the Marlins 9 back, the Braves 15.5 games back. Those teams aren't going to factor in down the stretch. Then you have the NL Central, which is the Milwaukee Brewers, a 1-game lead over the Chicago Cubs. And don't look now. Let's put this focus once again on the NL West, because we see those numbers for the Padres getting shorter here. The Dodgers numbers increasing just a bit. Why? The Dodgers are 63-46, Joe, in the season. Only a 3-game lead over the Padres, who have themselves at 60 wins. They've also won 5 games in a row, starting to put the pressure on the Dodgers. All those flurry of moves and activities here at the trade deadline really paying dividends. We'll see if they win again tonight as a favorite. But do you think that there's a chance now? Because throughout the summer, throughout the spring, it's always going to be the Dodgers. They're still going to win. I still think it's going to be the Dodgers. But now I see all those moves at the Padres meeting go toe for toe. Like, boy, I like everything about the Padres. Why can't they close that gap of 3 games, Joe, over the final 2 months of the season?
Yeah, they very well can, but they haven't. And history tells us that they end up falling short no matter how much money they spend or what they end up doing. So is it the right combination? And Donnie, that's it. Is it having such a loaded back end of the bullpen? Is that the way to beat the Dodgers, who are going to come into any series against the Padres, Donnie? And who's got the advantage starting pitching wise? What good does your bullpen matter if you're always trailing and you're never leading? And the starting pitching advantage for the Dodgers, by the time we get to the end of August and September, is going to be significant over what they've got. I will say this: Michael King is on his way back, by the way, for the Padres starting rotation.
Big news. Big news there. And keeping Dylan Cease, you get him back into form. That's a pretty good team here as we laid out. But if we do look at each one of those divisions, the NL East, the NL Central, and the NL West, Joe, it looks like it's 2-man races all the way through. As we said, Mets, Phillies, Brewers, Cubs, and now the Dodgers and the Padres. The Giants, 9 games back, 6 games in a row. We just talked about their odds absolutely plummeting down. But if I ask you today and you say, all right, comfortability here, is it the Dodgers to win the division? Is it the Brewers to win the division? Is it the Mets or those second-place teams, Joe, that we talk about, the Phillies, Cubs, and the Padres? Who are you most confident right now today, August 1st, that you can say will win their division in the National League?
Yeah, well, I don't know what else the Mets could have done to improve what their situation was, because there really wasn't a frontline starter that was going to be a game changer for them available, but they addressed everything else. But listen, the Phillies needed one thing. They needed a closer. And what did they do? They went out and got one of the best relievers in baseball over the last, 3 years? So, and he's under control, by the way, through, I think, 2027. So, and that to me was a deal all about Philadelphia competing in September and October. You've got a ton of veterans. You got a ton of big bats there, guys that have been there and done this. The Phillies, to me, should be the favorite to win the National League East, I think, and be very dangerous come playoff time because of that experience.
We'll see if that team can stay healthy. The Phillies notorious for playing decent baseball in the summer and then ramping up in September. You don't want to go backwards like they did last year, getting a little bit ice cold before they hit the playoffs. If we do look at the National League pennant odds, it is the Dodgers, still is the favorite at a plus 130 price, followed by the Philadelphia Phillies at plus 480, then the Mets at a plus 490, Chicago Cubs, Brewers, and the Padres now cut their number down to 10-1. The Dodgers gearing up. If they just stay healthy and get their players back from the IL to perform the way we think they are, they're always going to be the favorite here. The Phillies have unbelievable starting pitching, now fortifying that bullpen here. Robertson's coming into that rotation here in the month of August. I believe he's set to return, after his minor league stint, August the 5th. Alvarado, mid-month here. Now, Alvarado can't pitch in the playoffs, but he's certainly going to help down the stretch. And then you got Duran here from the Minnesota Twins. It's a decent bullpen now, which was one of those parts. It's like, they might struggle down the stretch, turning that into a positive. The Mets are always going to be out there. They're talented 1-9. Chicago Cubs still waiting on those starting pitchers for me, but the Brewers, it feels like to me now, like the Brewers and the Padres, those wild cards at 850 or higher. You say, I'm just going to go with the top teams. No, there's legit talent there on the Brewers and the Padres that can do some damage if they see the playoffs.
Yeah, and the problem with the Cubs is that it just feels like, it seems like everybody ahead of you got a little bit better, and it kind of felt like you were kicking the can down the road and you were happy with like Michael Soroka and Kittredge I mean, Will Castro's a nice pickup, but none of this is moving the needle compared to what everybody else already has or went out and got here at the trade deadline. So I think the Cubs kind of, you snooze, you lose. And I'm not happy with what the Cubs did here at all.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting as it plays out because that's a talented team, like 1 through 6, 1 through 7 in that lineup, really good, but the pitching seems like it's always going to leave them out at this point now. But if the Phillies get hot today, they're actually going to take on the Detroit Tigers coming to town. Flaherty's on the mound. You'll probably get Skubal this weekend, a huge series for them. But now that we see these rosters in motion, we start to play it out. I talk about it in the key word today. The haves and the have-nots. A lot of these teams that we're going over today are the haves, and certainly the expectations have been ramped up. When you enter into that locker room, Joe Ranieri, today on a Friday, when your team made trades to bolster that bullpen, fortify the starting pitching staff, add a couple bats, the expectations are raised. And the Dodgers understand this as well. The Padres raise the stakes. They're gunning for the Dodgers. The Dodgers better be on their A game. The Phillies and the Mets, they are going to teeter-totter the rest of the way. August and September, first place, second place, first place, second place. And the same thing with the Cubs and the Brewers. Those two teams going toe-to-toe in head-to-head matchups should be a lot of fun to play. But now that we see these teams looking and motivated to win a World Series, let's see how they play out over the next couple weeks here.
Yeah, again, this is where experience comes into play, right, Donnie? So it's the Dodgers. They're the champions. They have been... They know every time they walk into a different city or anytime a team comes to their ballpark, they're going to get the best. Everybody wants to beat the Dodgers. That's part of being a World Series champion here. The question is anybody going to do it? That's the big question because the market seems to think no.
No, certainly it does. You're going to start to separate. But also, those teams sort of left out, right? You look at teams like the Cincinnati Reds and the Giants who got their act cut in half, what you will. Is there anybody that we feel could make a charge into those standings here in the NL pennant race that you go, you know what? Maybe the Reds do get lightning in a bottle and charge up the standings. Or does it look like we're just set here? We got our top 6 and we're ready to go.
Yeah, I think it's very top heavy. And I think that's a byproduct of baseball pushing for parity. Well, you got a lot of parity. You got a lot of very mediocre baseball teams, including the Reds. And then you have the haves that are still that top third of the board there, Donnie. And the winner is coming from that group.
Circle the wagons, people. Down the stretch they come. We'll talk AL next.
Can you handle the heat? If you don't mind the desert at the hottest, consider visiting Vegas in the summer, where the temperatures are high and the prices are low. Have fun! See you in Las Vegas. Let's get lucky.
Christopher Sanchez of the Philadelphia Phillies is one of 3 Major League Baseball pitchers to have a 7-start span featuring an undefeated record, a sub-1.5 ERA, 50 or more innings pitched, 50 or more strikeouts, fewer than 5 walks, no more than 1 home run allowed.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
Luka Doncic lands the cover of Men's Health magazine. Let me say that again. Luka Doncic lands the cover of Men's Health magazine. I mean, that's noteworthy because Luka Doncic was seemingly traded away from Dallas because the Mavericks weren't sure if he was ever going to get in shape enough to deliver on his full potential.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
I like Payton. I like Jeremy Payton. I think he's a nice player, but really, look at this offense. You're shocked that they win games 2-1. I mean, they're an under machine. Solid pitching, even though Hector Staff's on the injured list still. The bullpen's solid, and they can't hit a lick. They average what? It seems like they average 3 runs a game,
but somehow they run off 10 in a row. They're 10 games under, and then they're 20 games over 500. Like, how does this team do it? That's just in them, though.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
Let's focus on the American League because a little bit different in the standings that we see some really close races in the National League. If we look at the division leaders, Joe, as it currently stands in the American League, the Toronto Blue Jays 3.5 games clear of the New York Yankees, the Detroit Tigers 9 games clear of the Cleveland Guardians, and then in the AL West, which is going to be some entertaining finish here, the Houston Astros 4.5 games clear of the Seattle Mariners and 5.5 games clear of the Texas Rangers. The Mariners and the Rangers are playing right now. So we see with those division leaders, how confident are we, Joe, that the Blue Jays, the Tigers, and the Astros will carry the day and win their divisions?
I think there's battles everywhere. I mean, the only team that is in the, position A, Donnie, to actually win their division is Detroit, without a whole lot of fanfare there, just because who's catching them in the Central. But Toronto is far from a given that they're going to take down the American League East. You've got, obviously, what's going on in the West with the Astros and the Mariners and now the Rangers. That's going to be a battle to the finish. So outside of Detroit, nothing. A lot of this whole board could look a lot differently, Donnie, in about 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks, and all those odds could be different. So I wouldn't be jumping in on Toronto now because I'm not convinced they're the ones winning the American League East when it's all said and done.
No, exactly. And if we're taking a look at, Detroit's not vulnerable. Like, the Guardians, the Royals, the Twins, the White Sox, they're not catching them. I don't think they blow a 9-game lead with 2 months to go. But if we do look at the Toronto Blue Jays as compared to the Yankees and the Houston Astros to the Mariners, it does feel like the Toronto Blue Jays are the team that is a little bit more vulnerable. But if we do put our focus on the AL West, this is going to be an unbelievable finish. The Rangers are healthy now. Pitching staff intact. Lineup looks as good as it did day number 1. They just have to produce now. You take a look at the Seattle Mariners at the trade deadline. Eugenio Suarez, Josh Naylor. They've already have a very good pitching staff here. And also Cal Raleigh leading Major League Baseball in home runs. The Houston Astros, who do get Correa there, waiting for Alvarez to come back into the lineup. They do have talent. But I just look at this and say, you know what? Like, even the Rangers, 7-3 in their last 10 games, even they lost their last game last night to the Mariners 6-0. It feels like one of those 3 teams, and I want to say like any team can win it, but Donnie, 5.5 games back, 4.5 games back, the Astros should win it. I get that. And yes, they have a 4.5 game lead, but I won't be surprised if you tell me any one of those 3 teams wins the division. They're that talented. If I had to put my money today and say, you know what, remove the Astros, it probably is going to be the Mariners because I'm so excited the way that lineup moves now and the lineup looks and also the good vibes around them. Like, I really think the Mariners can do some damage over August and September and get in there.
Yeah, listen, all those teams that you just mentioned, especially in the West here, Seattle and Texas, these are teams that got better today. They are better today on paper than they were 24 to 48 hours ago. And listen, Houston had a need and they addressed it getting Carlos Correa back. But again, what version of Carlos Correa are you getting? And that's the big question. So there are some reinforcements on the way. They will get some pitching help back there. But again, you got a Texas team that is just a couple of years removed from being World Series champions. They underperformed the entire first half of the season. But now they're starting to put it together, and they are a better team today, and so is Seattle. So I wouldn't exactly be celebrating an Astros American League West division crown just yet.
Yeah, remove the Central out, focus here on the East, focus there on the West. We're going to have some pretty good races as we enter into the month of August. But if you look at the pennant odds here in the American League, you have a dead heat at the top right now, plus 360. Plus 360. That's the New York Yankees and the Detroit Tigers. As you see that graphic, they've shifted even this morning. The Toronto Blue Jays, plus 430. The Astros, plus 440. Look how tightly compact these 4 teams are. So if I give you right now, Joe, you have the Yankees, the Tigers, the Jays, and the Astros. One team to put your money on. Which team out of those 4 are you putting your money on?
I'm putting it on the Yankees. Yeah, I think that they have put it together. Judge, by the way, looks like he's already taking batting practice. So apparently this little stint on the 10-day IL will be just that, and he'll be back before you know it. I like the moves the Yankees made. They weren't going to go out and replace Garrett Cole, but they are getting Louis Heel back. Max Fried looks like he has figured it back out. The blister is not an issue. You still have Rodon, and now you have a bullpen where what do you need from your starters? 5-6 innings, if that. So, I think the Yankees, because I'm not buying the Shane Bieber thing. Is Bieber coming and be like, what did you do, Blue Jays? You got a bunch of second-tier arms coming in, and that's not going to compete with what the Yankees just did. So I think the Yankees are still the team to beat here.
And again, just like we talked about the National League, it's like the Reds are on that cutoff point, but it feels like we have our top six. If we list the odds in order, Yankees, Tigers, Blue Jays, Astros, Mariners, and Red Sox here, along with the Rangers. Like, okay, well, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 teams. After that, it's the Rays at 47-1 currently here on the board. If we look at the cutoff line, the Red Sox and the Rangers, if you had to put your money on the team that sneaks into that final wild card spot, Mariners, Red Sox, Rangers, but more of the focus on the Red Sox and the Rangers. Who's one of those two teams that, you know what? Who's in, who's out?
Yeah, listen, I think we're going to get nothing but Ranger money, I think, from this point on here as the team that can go. Yeah. And I agree with it. The Red Sox, great season, great job. But this really for the Red Sox is about, bringing along that young talent that they have. It is the future here. It is not about trying to take down the other teams in front of them here. So already it's a win for me for the Red Sox this season, but I wouldn't be placing money that they're going to make some sort of giant push here over the final 2 months.
Yeah, there are a couple teams that you certainly want to get invested in. We talked about those price points here. They are all lumped up. But if I had to choose like one team, Joe, that's like, am I getting fool's gold here? Like of some of the top teams, doesn't it just feel like, and again, I like the Blue Jays. I like to bet them on a day-to-day basis. I like their lineup all the way through. They're a competitive team. They're in first place in the AL East. But when I look at that price point at plus 430, I just feel like getting sold a bill of goods. Like, man, you bet on Toronto. They're 5 games back at September 21st. Like, that's the team that feels like could trip me up, Joe.
Yeah, and I think Detroit, too, is fool's gold. And I've thought it for a while now. And they're going to get a lot of money, Donnie, and I'm not buying the Detroit Tigers.
Yeah, what Joe's trying to say is the Philadelphia Phillies open up a series tonight against the Detroit Tigers, which your boy DRS will be there. An easy victory for Ranger Suarez and the boys tonight. I think that's what Joe just said. Let's get to the NFL and Terry talk next.
Can you handle the heat? If you don't mind the desert at the hottest, consider visiting Vegas in the summer, where the temperatures are high and the prices are low. Have fun! See you in Las Vegas. Let's get lucky.
Christopher Sanchez of the Philadelphia Phillies is one of 3 Major League Baseball pitchers to have a 7-start span featuring an undefeated record, a sub-1.5 ERA, 50 or more innings pitched, 50 or more strikeouts, fewer than 5 walks, no more than 1 home run allowed.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
Luka Doncic lands the cover of Men's Health magazine. I'm going to say that again. Luka Doncic lands the cover of Men's Health magazine. I mean, that's noteworthy because Luka Doncic was seemingly traded away from Dallas because the Mavericks weren't sure if he was ever going to get in shape enough to deliver on his full potential.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
I like Payton. I like Jeremy Payton. I think he's a nice player, but really, look at this offense. You're shocked that they win games 2-1. I mean, they're an under machine. solid pitching, even though half their staff's on the injured list still. The bullpen's solid, and they can't hit a lick. They average what? It seems like they average like 3 runs a game. But somehow they run off, 10 in a row? They're 10 games under, and then they're 20 games over 500. Like, how does this team do it? That's just in them, though.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
Frustration starting to settle in. It's the NFL. It's the month of August. Guys going to be fighting in training camp. Guys, getting ready for preseason games, and it's hot out there. And most people have their money when they show up and looking to earn a roster spot. Terry McLaurin of the Washington Commanders is not looking to show up and earn a roster spot. He's looking to show up and get paid. He actually stayed away for a day or two from Commanders camp here, got charged $50,000, and then all of a sudden had an ankle injury, decided to show up to camp, but said, make no mistake about it, I'm not here because we're close to a deal. I'm not here because I want to put on a smiley face and say eventually we'll get a deal done. I'm here because I don't want to lose $50,000, and I also have to start rehabbing my ankle. So a couple days go by. We figured that this deal probably would say, we'll give you an extra couple years. We'll give you the money that you want. Maybe not all of it, but something that everybody can be happy with. We haven't seen that now. And now you ratchet up the pressure from McLaurin's side, and he says, you know what? Now I don't even want to be here. If you're not going to negotiate with me in good faith, where so many players in my caliber are getting paid and you want to pay me pennies on the dollar, I'm not happy I went out of town. So let's start with that first here. The trade request now for Terry McLaurin. How real is that? Or is this just a negotiation that says, just make some waves in the press, get the fan base all riled up? This would only help your side here, Joe.
Yeah, so I guess you got to start. I get it with him. He's willing to push the envelope here, Donnie, to get himself a new deal. But he's not really ever come out. We have never really heard what exactly he is looking for, right? Because I think everything is relative here. He's basically just said that he wants to be paid like he's one of the top receivers in the league. All right, that's pretty general, but you've got 9 wide receivers now getting at least $30 million a year. Is he that? DJ Metcalf, what did he just get with the Steelers? I think $33 million a year. So is McLaurin in that cat? Is he worth the money? I think is the first question we got to ask ourselves. If you're the Commanders, he's turning 30. He's always been with this team. Are we giving this guy that kind of money? Are we going to get the return, in your opinion? I think that's where you got to start this conversation.
It is, but also understand this too, because when you have a team that made the NFC Championship, you're not looking for any distractions the next season. Now, if I equate it back to my Philadelphia Eagles fandom days in 2004, the Eagles made the Super Bowl. Terrell Owens played on a broken leg. That offseason, they wouldn't guarantee him like $5 million for the next season, and he absolutely went ballistic and ruined the 2005 season. So now we see 20 years later. I'm not saying Terry McLaurin's going to do sit-ups and push-ups on his front lawn for a press and have, Drew Rosenhaus show up and be like, next question. But at the same time, this is the time that you have the ability to extend your payroll and overpay because your quarterback, who is a really good quarterback, is on a rookie pay scale number. So if Terry McLaurin wanted an extra $3 million a year, $4 million, meet him in the middle, why aren't we doing this now? That's my question, Joe.
Yeah, well, again, it's He's at that age, right? That 30.
Yeah.
This will be his third contract, Donnie, right? With the team.
Yeah.
He's going to be 30, which means a new deal probably won't kick in until he's 31. And we all know what happens 31 and beyond. You're not getting the same wide receiver. You're paying for a previous production from a younger wide receiver. But once he gets to that 31, you're going to be paying a guy till he's 34 years old. And let's face it, the production might not be there. So I get why the Commanders are hesitant here. But again, didn't Metcalf and him come out at the same time? One guy gets $33 million with Pittsburgh, and we're still trying to figure out McLaurin. They both came out at the same time in 2000. Back feels like forever ago.
Yeah, and also McLaurin just a little bit older, I guess, more mature, we should say, coming out of college. But at the same time, like when you are in that bracket of I'm a really good wide receiver and everybody's getting paid around me, why aren't I getting paid? Like you start to get sour on that organization, even though you love that football team and the guys in there. And usually most NFL players, they're not going to pocket watch. They're not going to ask Terry McLaurin's, teammates saying, you know what? I just don't think that it's fair that he's holding out. We're in here working. Like, nobody's going to say that. They're going to say, get your money, even if it's not with us. That's just the way we work, and we'll certainly support you in the meantime. Same thing with Trey Hendrickson. He's not asking to reset the market. At least we don't think so with the defensive end position. But also what he's saying is, I'm going to make $15 million this year. Guys are making 30 plus here. I'm not saying I need to make that much, but I am underpaid. And that's all Terry McLaurin is saying as well. And the fact of the matter is, offering him in a contract in like February and March and no movement whatsoever. March, April, May, June, July, now into August. So I guess the next level up is, I need to ask for a trade, because if I'm really unhappy, just get me out of here. Because his agent is fielding calls going, hey, man, I'll swing over to New England. They got exactly what you need. The amount of money you want, it's on the table, which always makes it tougher for us. So Terry McLaurin, I think he gets paid in Washington. He's just upset. I don't think there's any chance that they actually trade him away, and we'll find out what happens. New hour coming up next. Faye the public. Let's ask that question once again.